Good morning. This is Dash of Virtual PBX or Virtual PBX Dash admin training. Getting started just a little early, so gonna give people a minute or so here to get logged in and join us. The training lasts about an hour and a half to an hour and 45. Mostly that depends on load times and or if I happen to skip something and have to go backwards. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a given feature as I go over it. We do record these trainings, so if you can't stay for the entire time, you can come back later and finish watching it. Likewise, you can share the link with other staff members who need to be admins on the account, which means, yes, you can have multiple admins on a single account. Let's see. We are here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for the most part. There will be a couple here and there throughout the year that we skip. We do have other videos on our YouTube channel. Some of them are feature specific, others are not. A couple I will point out as we go through the training just because they do a better job of covering the feature, usually because of limitations of my streaming software. All right, so it's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and dive right in. On the screen here, you see our Dash login page. This is at dash.virtualpbx.com. To log in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address. That's your unique identifier for your user. We then need your password, which hopefully was emailed to you. And lastly, we need the account name, which is typically your company name or business name. Now, if you don't have that for whatever reasons, specifically your password, down here towards the bottom right, we have a forgot your info link. It's just above the sign-in bar. When you click on that, it'll flip over, and we still need your email address. And then we need one of the 2. So there's 2 pieces of information. We need one of these, right? So we can give us your account name, right, the business name, or an account phone number. And that's a phone number your customers call typically to get a hold of you. So one of those 2. You then click on reset password. When you do that, the system will send you an email, right? So the email address you use to log in, and that email will have a link that lets you log in. Now, that link is only allowing you to change your password. It's not going to let you do anything else. Right? So you change your password, it's going to log you out. If you try to navigate away from your password, it will also, or that password page, it will also log you out. But then you can come back here and enter your password. Some things to note about logging in. You want to make sure your email address is in all lowercase letters, no capitals, whereas the account name should match exactly what we have on file for your company. So if you have like an odd mix of capitals and lowercase letters, you need to make sure it matches what we have. But then you click on sign in. Now, I'm using a test account that I log in on a regular basis. So by default, when I log in here, it's taking me right to the dashboard page. For you, or for anyone who just signed, first time logging in, the system will first take you to your user account page. Now, you can get there at any time by clicking on your name at the top right. So here is my account page, right? So this is where you can change your password, right? So if you got that initial email saying, hey, welcome to Dash, and you just you looked at the password and you said, oh my God, I'll never remember that, you can come here and change it to something you can remember, and then click on Save Changes. Also, that first time logging in, the Dash Wizard pop-ups will appear, right, to highlight what certain things are. As a system admin, over here on the left, you also have the account level settings. Not much you can change here. The main thing that people tend to change is either the time zone or possibly the display language, so how the web pages, what language they show up in. If you ever need to change the account name, you're actually going to need to email our billing team. That's billing@virtualpbx.com. And they just have to make sure that your account name is changed in all the relevant places so everything syncs up properly. When you're done here, Over here towards the top right, there's a little close box. You click on that, and that will take you to the dashboard page. Now, again, that first time logging in, the little wizard will pop up and start telling you what certain things are. All right, let's see here. Now, up here at the top, again, you can click on your name at any time, take you back to your account page, right? That's where you change your own password. That's the major thing it's used for. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right? D&D standing for Do Not Disturb. The reason my user does not have it is because my user is part of an ACD queue. So once I get assigned to the queues, the D&D toggle gets removed. And that's just because those two features do not work well together. Little graduation hat or cap icon here. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages. Right? So you can have helpful guides, etc. Little chat bubble, right, or a speaking bubble. When you click on this, this will open up the chat window so you can speak to one of our support team members who can then help you with various features. The three horizontal line icon here, that's the menu icon, or sometimes referred to as the hamburger icon. This takes you to other dash features. Now, for the majority of this training, we'll be here in the dashboard. Right. These others we will touch on to some degree, some very minorly, others a little bit more in depth. And then we have the logout icon. Now here, total users, or actually let's start on left. Here, this is your left nav to get to other features within the dashboard itself, which we'll be touching on most of these. Here in the middle, total users, these are people on my account, right, who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So typically as you add more users, your bill will increase. Just something to be aware of. Then total devices, I have 38 devices. Now I have a breakdown here. So first up is soft phone. In case you don't know, Dash is originally designed to work with VoIP devices, right? Voice over Internet Protocol. That just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. So a soft phone, a software application, uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. That means it can be on a computer, it can be on a cell phone, it could be on a tablet. All right, this is going to include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. It can include other people's soft phone apps, right? Third-party apps. Cell phone, most of us know what that is. SIP phone, this is a VoIP device, right? So uses your internet connection, piece of physical hardware. Typically connects via an Ethernet cable to your router to get it out to the internet. So VoIP, general term, SIP is a subtype of VoIP phones, right? There are other kinds of protocols that phones can use. So when you're shopping, you want to make sure you're looking for a SIP compatible or SIP compliant phone. And we'll go over some of the specific makes that are compatible. Web phone. This is for use with Chrome or Firefox on a computer, right? So technically it's a soft phone, right? So it's a VoIP device. Once you add this device to your user, you can then use your Dash login information on webphone.virtualpbx.net, and you can use Chrome or Firefox then to make and receive calls. Down here, I have unregistered devices. That means, and that has 2 of them. And this is actually in reference to my SIP phone. So 2 of my physical hardware phones are not currently registered. And that just means the system can't connect to them. We don't know why, right? The system doesn't know why. You know, that could be one of the phones unplugged, right? Could also be that there's an internet problem, right? Someone has an internet outage, right? Or usually most of the time, some sort of router setting is involved. Next up, I have total numbers, right? These are phone numbers on the account. I have 31. It's a lot for an account. You know, your plan includes some amount of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. So if you just signed up for us and with us, and then let's say you had 31 numbers, in that instance, you would probably be paying extra for some of those phone numbers. Usually it's $1.99 per number. For specifics of that, like in terms of how many numbers are included and what your overage is, especially if you did not just sign up. Let's say you've been with us for a few years, then you'd want to talk to our account services team. They can verify how many numbers are included on your plan and then what the overage is for any additional phone numbers. All right, then we have two breakdowns. The first tier is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers, you're using it, right? It's an active number. Someone can dial that number and expect to either speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Spare number counts towards your allotment of phone numbers, but it doesn't go anywhere right now. It's going to ring busy, right? It could be you're not using it because you just had a promotion end. And you're like, okay, let's take this number out so we're not getting calls about an inactive promotion. Or for example, you're about to expand to a new location, right? So let's say you're based in Chicago, and now you're going to open up a store in Iowa City, Iowa, right? So then you can get a phone number that's specific to Iowa, or Iowa City, excuse me. So that way you have the number ready, right? So you can use it for on your marketing materials and whatnot, but you're not ready to put it in service yet because you don't want calls going there because maybe there's no one there yet to answer the call, etc. Next breakdown here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. And USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So say number in Chicago, Illinois, number in Iowa City, Iowa. You can have international phone numbers if you wish. If you want to add one, you want to email our porting team, and that's porting@virtualpbx.com. And they need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. Now, they will let you know if we can get a number in that particular location, and they also let you know if there's additional requirements. Those requirements come from the country you're getting a phone number in, and it's going to vary, right? Some countries don't care. They say, hey, go ahead, have the number. Others want all sorts of documentation. Conference bridges, I have 5, and that just means I have enabled the conference feature on 5 of my users, right? So these 5 users, they host or moderate a conference. Now we're going over here towards the top right, this main number box. I have 4 main numbers. These numbers all behave in the same fashion. They're all going to the same location in my system, and they're all going to play the same main greeting. You can obviously have multiple main numbers. You can choose not to have any, although the system does really want you to have a main number. Now, next up, conference bridge. Conference number. I have 1 conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but this is the number that everyone dials to get to the conference rooms, right? That includes your staff members, right? Not just your clients or vendors. When you call the number, the system will prompt whoever's calling to enter the conference room number and their PIN number, right? And the PIN number determines whether you're joining as a moderator or a participant. Next up, I have the fax box number. You can have the one main fax box number, and this just becomes your inbound fax number. It also, once you have it, then allows you to enable outbound faxing if you want. Here you've got the company directories, and you've got 2 download links. One's CSV, the other is soft phone. So CSV downloads a CSV file, right? So for use with a spreadsheet program, and you can then see, your staff members' names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. The soft phone download link, that's for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So you would download this file and then upload it to your VirtualPBX soft phone on your Windows or Mac OS PC. This allows you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. So if everyone on your account is using the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone app, you can see their status, right? Whether they're on a call or not. Now, if you have people who have a mix of devices, then you can only see what they're doing with their soft phone, right? So if my colleague Mike is using his Yealink W54 on a call, right? From my soft phone app, I'm not gonna be able to tell that he's using that. I can only tell what he's using, what's going on with this soft phone. VirtualPBX Store, when you click on the link here, it's gonna open up a new tab, take you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you could order things like a VoIP phone or routers, etc. And then lastly here, we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. You use this on a couple things. First, if you're making use of a third-party application, right, for a soft phone, this is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that piece of software. The other thing that this is used for is to send a fax out. So on Dash, you can send a fax out. You don't even have to log into your Dash account. You just need to use the email address that's associated with your user, assuming it's properly set up. You create an email like you normally do. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. You just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and then send, right? So the system is looking at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It does not care what's in the subject line. It does not care what's in the body of the email. In fact, it won't even send any details from those 2 fields. You can only send the 1 attachment per email, so you want to make sure it's that PDF or TIFF file. So remove any signature files, etc., and or combine anything you want to fax into 1 document. Again, PDF or TIFF. The largest file I've been able to fax out ever was 7 megabytes, but it took over an hour for me to get that confirmation. All right, up here at the top where it says Sandbox Training, and then I have caller ID. I'm going to click on caller ID here. So this pull down lets you select any of your main numbers, right? So I can use any of those 4 main numbers. And that number becomes your default number, right? So it's what your VoIP phones would use for outbound caller ID. A couple other features that just key in on that right off the bat. Then you have this field here, company caller ID name or CNAME. This is an optional feature. This allows you to associate text with your phone number's outbound caller ID. You're limited to 15 characters. That includes spaces and special characters that you can then put in this field. Next, the system wants the company emergency information, or E911, wants a North American address, right? And then you would click on Save Changes, and this becomes your default E911 information whenever anyone picks up a VoIP phone and dials 911. That's the address that gets sent to emergency services. Now, each of your phone numbers, you can assign its own E911 address, right? So each phone number can have a different address, and that means you can then assign your VoIP devices to a different phone number for E911 purposes only, right? So whenever, Bobby's phone dials 911, it has a different address than what Melissa's phone does when she dials 911, because they could be, working from home. Right. So then when you click on Save Changes, right, the system will save the information. If you entered information in the company caller ID name field, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their databases. That's not something we can control. Now, this is what's referred to as provisioning for caller ID name. That's all we can control. So from a VoIP phone, right, you pick up the phone, you make an outbound call, we associate this phone number and this caller ID name with your phone number, right, and we send that out. Now, when a call goes out, it can go through multiple carriers before it reaches its destination. So it's possible that in that route, one of those carriers doesn't support CNAME, which means your CNAME doesn't reach the destination at all. The other thing to know is that destination carrier, right, they get to decide what goes through, right? So they can say, oh, you're sending the phone number, which you should do, and the CNAME information. Well, okay, that's great. And they pass it all through, reaches the destination device. Or they can say, no, we don't like your CNAME information. We're going to look up our own database and put that information in instead. Or they can say, no, we're not sending any CNAME information. We're just letting the number go through. That's especially true when it comes to the cell phone carriers, right? So when you're calling a cell phone, odds are your CNAME information is not going to go through unless the person you're calling happens to be paying their cell phone provider an additional fee to have that feature on their cell phone. All right, hold music. So Dash allows you to upload your own media files, in this case for hold music. So you would click upload here and you would find the file on your computer. You want to make sure it's an MP3 or .wav file, and it's under 1 megabyte. Now, to help you with that file size limit, I do recommend you record in mono, right? That'll save you some space. And also, phones only typically have one speaker, so that makes it easier. Although even a stereo file typically has played, at least when I've tested it. Now, hours is part of main number. So we'll just go here. All right, so first up, main company numbers, right? So these are all your main numbers, right? Your general numbers. Down here, you have your option to add from spare numbers or by numbers. So spare numbers, right? Numbers you're not currently using. This is also how you would reuse a number, right? So for instance, I can unassign a number here, right? The 703 number. It asks me if I want to remove the E911 or caller ID. I can leave that unchecked and just click remove. Now that 703 number is not deleted from my account. It now becomes a spare number. If I click on it here, add from spare, right? We'll see it's right there. That's the number I could add. I can add it back if I want to, or one of these other numbers, right? You would just click on add selected, and then now it's here. Now, by numbers is how you add new numbers to your account. So let's say you only started off when you signed up with one number, but your account includes 10. You can click on by numbers anywhere you can add a number. You're not going to be charged for it because your account includes 10 numbers, right? It's just how the engineers decide to say, hey, this is how you add numbers. You have your option of local and toll-free. So we'll start with toll-free because that's pretty easy. You choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click on search. It's going to give you a list of phone numbers. It can take a little while sometimes. Now, this list is dynamic, meaning you are technically competing with other people in real time. And so basically what I might mean by that is you want to make sure you complete the process all the way through. You don't want to stop partway. And you can scroll down and look for numbers you want. You just click add. It adds it to your cart. Now you're not done yet because you can you can add multiple numbers, right? So let's say I like these two 855 numbers. Then I click on by numbers. Now the system is verifying that these numbers were truly available, right? Someone didn't finish their process before I finished mine. Right? While I was talking. Once it verifies the numbers are truly there, then it adds them to my account, and you see both of those 855 numbers are there. So now they're mine, right? And they're on my main number, so people can dial them right away and get to my main reading. All right, by numbers for local, slightly different. Here, you need to know the area code that you want to work with. So let's do 310, and you get this message. Now, this can happen on any area code that includes the toll-free area codes, right? And that just means there's no readily available phone numbers in this area code. It's exhausted. Generally speaking, especially for for 310, what I would suggest doing is Googling or doing a search for area code 310 overlay, right? So area code, whatever area code number you're looking for, and then the word overlay. And that just means an overlay, right, is multiple area codes that cover the same geographic spot, right? They have the same boundaries. So in that case, I would go back to search and do 424, which is the overlay for 310. And you see here, I have multiple numbers to choose from. I can click add and by numbers, just like before. Now, it is possible that you could do a search for all the overlays and there's not anything available. You could try emailing your Porter team and they can double check, or they can do what's called a back order, which basically means, hey, we try to order a number saying, hey, if one becomes available, we want to get it. And then we add it to the account. There's no choice involved, right? And there's no way for us to give you an ETA because we're waiting for someone to give up a number for us to be able to get one for you. Now you got this little gear icon here next to a phone number. So first up is caller ID, right? So you can add outbound CNAM information, right? And then here is the ability to turn on inbound caller ID name, right? So this allows the name of the person who's calling in to get through to your staff members. Next up, we have E911, right? So this is where you can add an individual address to each of your phone numbers. Right. And then once we get the VoIP devices, I'll show you how to add it to a specific device. Prepend is a VoIP feature. This allows you to add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, basically to give them the idea of what the call might be about. You just type it in here and then click on Save Changes. So after you have phone numbers, then you can have your office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office or custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. All right. Then you select your open hours in these boxes here to the right in 24-hour or military time. Also down here towards the bottom, they ask you, are you closed for lunch? This is basically saying, hey, do you want your phone system to go in lunch mode every time at the same day? And that would be only on your days that you're open. Right. If you put a check mark here, you'll have your lunch hours that you can select in that 24-hour or military time. And then any changes you make, you click on Save Changes. Office holidays, if you're closed for holidays, click on the little box in front of this here, and that will allow you to add holidays. Then towards the right, you have Add Holiday. You can click here, and you've got 3 options: single day, date range, and advanced. Single day, like I have here for last New Year's Eve, right? So you give it a name, you select the month and the date, then you click on Save Changes. Right? Likewise, if you want to get rid of it, you click on the little trash icon, click on Save Changes. Date range is like I have here for Xmas break, right? So gave it a name, start date, end date, Save Changes. Just as a precaution, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It hasn't posed a problem probably since we first started. I mean, initially it did, and then we got that fixed, but just as a precaution, we still recommend against it. For advanced, it's like I have here for Thanksgiving. So give it a name, choose the month. Then this pull down, you have 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the day of the week. Right, so 4th Thursday. And then any changes here, whether you've added some or deleted some, click on Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So first thing to notice, I have 3 subtabs up here: open hours, after hours, and holidays. If I had said I was closed for lunch, I'd have a 4th tab for lunch hours. And then these options here will always be here. Now, the first 3 will always be here. The 4th one only shows up under a couple of circumstances. One of those is if we made some kind of custom build for you, called a custom call flow, then that could show up here. Or more commonly, is if your account includes multiple auto attendants and you included one of those auto attendants as available in your main menu, then this would also show up. So my main numbers, right? So these 4 or 5 main phone numbers, how does my system handle the call during my open hours? And you have these options to choose from. So the first one here, call comes in and goes to my virtual receptionist. This is a link, right? It's going to open up a big old window. There we go. On the left is your main menu. This is where you would enter the menu options that people can press on their phone to navigate through your phone system, right? 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing, right? And so you, down here, you click on Add Route, and then this pull down, you can have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And then the second pull down, that's where you want it to go, right? So you got the Smart PBX directory, any users that you have, scroll down, any queues if you're making use of this feature. Right? Call queues is an upgrade feature, so it's not on that many accounts. Groups is an included feature. This is typically what people use for departments, right? If they find that groups doesn't work for them, that's usually when they go up the queues. Devices, that means you're having it go to a specific phone. We'll scroll further down. And then we have voicemail boxes, right? So you can, press 0 to leave a voicemail. And then lastly, media files. So you can have a menu option go play a media file, like a greeting. Now, once that media file stops playing, the call ends. Now, over here on the right, you have my greetings. And these are your greeting options down here, right? So the greeting is where you say thank you for calling, typically say your organization name. And then you want to give or make sure there's instructions for the inbound caller on how to navigate through the system, right? That's where you tell them, press 1 to speak to our sales team, press 2 to speak to our support team, that sort of thing. Or you just give extension numbers. Then, so the first option here is text-to-speech. Literally, you type in your greeting here, you would click update, then save and save changes. Now, the text-to-speech greeting is limited to 250 characters. Not words, characters. Does not count spaces. You can sometimes get over that 250 character. I've had up to like 300 work, but 250 works consistently. The other limitation is the system doesn't allow you to give it a name. It creates the name for you, and it reuses the name if you have multiple, right? So in this case, since we're under my main open hours, right, it calls it main open hours menu TTS. And then let's say I called in, I didn't like it, and I edit this greeting again, right? So now I have technically, and then I click update, save changes. I'll have 2 files now called main open hours menu TTS. And from any pull down, I'll not know which one is which. Now, the text-to-speech greeting is great when you're just starting out, right? Like if you're a startup, you're not used to a PBX system, or you're just not yet sure how you want the system, calls to flow. So when you make use of text-to-speech, when you create that first one, on the left, you're going to want to go to the greetings tab, which we'll get to. And that's where you can change the name, right? So it's be something easier for you to recognize from a pull down. So if you need to go back to it, or you can delete it right afterwards if you're like, oh, nope, that's not working, and get rid of it. You can upload your own file, .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click on choose file to find the file on your computer or phone or what have you. Click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. This pull down will show every media file you've added to the account. Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files will all be there. So that's why you want to have names that you can recognize relatively easily. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system says this here, right? Pick a phone registered on this account. What that means is pick up a VoIP phone on this account, right? That's a security feature. Basically, so that way the system knows, hey, this phone is already associated with this account. It's okay for it to change the main greeting. Now, if you don't want to do that, let's say you want to use, you have a friend with a, good radio voice, and they can't come to the office, right? It's just not convenient for them. You can say, well, here, just call in from your cell phone. Well, to do that, you want to go down here to settings, and then where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. So what that means is now people can call in from a cell phone or a landline, basically any phone number. And when they hear your greeting play, right, they can enter the PIN number and the system will accept it and allow them to then change your main greeting. Now, we recommend after you do that to turn this back off, so that way other people can't randomly figure this out. Don't know why they would try, but there are people like that. And then change your main greeting on you. Now, when you record over the phone, right, the system doesn't allow you to choose a file name. It just creates one for you. Or if you already have a greeting in place, it just reuses that file name. Right? So if you just signed up with us and you called your main number right off the bat, for instance, when you call, you'll hear a message say that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet. And then it'll prompt you to enter the PIN number. If, however, let's say you've been using your system with us for quite some time, so you already have a greeting in place, when you call in, your greeting plays. If you enter in the PIN number, the system will still recognize it and then walk you through recording it over the phone. In that scenario, you're overwriting the existing greeting with the new one that you're about to record. Right? So you lose the original greeting and replace it with a new one. Professional recording services, when you click order here, this is going to open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. You have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly via credit card. Then they send you the file via email. So then you can come back up here and upload your own file. All right, settings. First up here, we have number of retries on misdial. I always mess that one up. Basically, this is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake when trying to enter a menu option or an extension number. Right? So in this case, I'm giving them 2 retry attempts. That means 3 total attempts, right? Because they get the first attempt for free, basically. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the person's done, right? For multiple digit extensions. So we'll just do a scenario here. You know, customer calls in. Here's your main greeting. And then let's say they press 7, right? Not a valid menu option. And I don't have an extension number 7. The system waits for 5 seconds, right? Waiting for if there's an additional digit after that 7, right? To see if they're entering a multiple digit extension number. After that 5, then it says, oh, they have 2 retries. So it plays the greeting again. That inbound caller presses 7 again, waits 5 more seconds. Not a valid entry. System plays the greeting 1 more time. Person enters 9. Still not a valid entry. System waits 5 seconds. And now it does one of 2 things, right? Since I have a default action here, after that last entry, that last failed attempt, the system says, we did not recognize your entry, transferring your call, right? And then it transfers them to my PBX directory. I click X to remove that. Now, with no valid entry or no default action, and the customer's been entering the wrong entry message or the wrong menu options, the system says, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, and ends the call. Now, the reason to not have a default action is to limit the impact of robodialers. All right, well, we already covered allow outside recording. So allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And what that means is when the inbound caller calls in, if they enter in a valid extension number, the system will recognize it and transfer the call. Right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press my menu options. Anything else they enter will be considered invalid entry, right? Failed attempt. And then we have the suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if I don't want the system to tell the inbound caller that we didn't recognize your entry and just not say anything, I could turn this on. So for instance, if we put this default action back, actually here, let's do, oh, yeah, these pull downs aren't working. So if you have a default action to say going to Aaron, right? Then what could happen is after that last attempt, if I have this suppressed, the system just says transfer in your call. It doesn't say anything about not recognizing the entry and then just transfers the call to Aaron. All right, so any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you want to click on Save. And then you're taken back to incoming call handling here. You need to click Save Changes here, right? So you're clicking Save twice. All right, second option, call comes in, and this pull down, actually here, I think I have it set up for, oh, I guess I don't. So you'll just do it here. So this is designed to be your live operator answer option. So in this case, right, I just set it for my after hours, calls come in, they're ringing to my front desk ring group, right? So multiple staff members. If they're not able to answer it, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. I click on virtual receptionist, right? This is my after hours, right? Tells me that right up here. And these are my menu options. I would have a different greeting in place than I would during my open hours, etc. Right, so this first pull down, you have options to choose from. Generally speaking, you're either having it go to users, a call queue, if you have them, groups, if you created them, or device. No matter what you choose, it's going to ring for 20 seconds before it goes to the virtual receptionist. Obviously, if your staff member answers the call, it's not going to go to the virtual receptionist. Third option here, call comes in and goes, in this case, I'm telling it go right to this voicemail box. Now, this pull down, again, you can select users, groups, queues, devices. You can even have a media file play, right? Whatever you choose, after 20 seconds, it then goes to the voicemail box that you designated here. Right. Main conference number, again, you can add multiple, right? Buy new, add from spare, just like we showed under the main number. You also have the option here for custom greeting. Click on that. You can click enable, and that's a text-to-speech greeting. So if I left this disabled, the system says welcome to the conference and prompts the people to enter the conference number and the PIN number, right? The reason you would have this is that way you just want to put your company name here and then give them those instructions. Main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number, right? So that's why I don't have the option to add from spare or buy new ones. Once you've added a fax box number, click on edit fax box, and you have two fields that you can enter here. First one is the inbound notification email, right? Basically designed to put an email address or multiple separated by a comma. But basically what happens is when a fax comes into this phone number, the system will email the person you designated, and that emails can include like the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment of the fax. Now, if let's say I called this fax number with my cell phone, right? I hear fax tones, most people hang up. This email, right, Ariel, he'll get an email saying, hey, there was a failed inbound fax attempt. It'll have the date, the time, the phone number involved. Now, sometimes on that email, it will have like the caller ID and say wireless caller. So that's a good way to know, oh, that was just someone misdialed. Otherwise, if it's a number you recognize or we're expecting a fax from, you'd probably want to contact that other party and find out if there's some kind of issue on their side. This second field, the email permissions, this is to enable outbound faxing. It's designed to put your company's email domain here, right? Then you would click on Save Changes. And so in this case, I'm saying anyone at virtualpbx.com, they can create an email and send a fax out. If they have to have the proper format, meaning they need my account roam. But then they can send a fax out. They don't have to be a user on my Dash account. So if like you have an intern whose job is just to fax things out, they can just need the proper format and an email at your company domain, and they can just start sending faxes out. All right. Auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, and this is where you can create secondary auto attendance. A couple use cases for secondary auto attendance. One is for sub-menuing, right? So you can do something like people call into your main number, and then they hear a greeting, and that says, for English, press 1. For Spanish, press 2. Well, for those options to work, you would create auto attendance, one in English and one in Spanish, right? Like here, I have a Spanish one. And the idea is that you would have a main greeting in Spanish with menu options that go to your Spanish-speaking staff members, right? Whereas the English would have an English greeting going to English-speaking staff members. The other use case that comes up is for if you have multiple businesses, right? But you have the same staff people answering calls for these multiple businesses, right? So the multiple businesses would have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings. So the purpose of that would be their standalone auto attendance. So up here at the top, you click on add attendant. You give it a name and an extension number and click on create attendant. The extension number is not something any of your customers would typically know, but your staff members could use it to transfer calls to the correct attendant if necessary. Once an attendant is created, when you click on the name here, by default, it shows up as unavailable in main menu, right? This means it's a standalone attendant, right? Whether that means it's a separate business or just something you want to use separate, right? Like you can use it for like going to, calls to going to like your house versus your business. Right, but you can click here to say available in main menu, meaning now it will become a menu option or auto attendant option. I mean, under the incoming call handling option, excuse me. Here's your option to delete. If you make a change, click on Save Changes. Phone number field, so you can add from spare, buy new, right? So that way your auto attendant here can have its own phone number or multiple phone numbers. Oh, oops. Right, gear icon here, so you can add E911, caller ID, or prepend. The extension box, you can have attendants have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. And then you got the little gear icon or wrench icon here under settings. And here you got open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? These times or dates match what you've set up under your main company number, right? So they have the same hours of operation. If you have multiple businesses and some of them are 24/7 while others are, 9 to 5, then you'd want to talk to our account services team to see if having multiple auto attendants works for you or if they need to do some kind of custom work. And if you do need multiple accounts, usually they can work out some sort of discount in that situation. All right, I'm going to skip down here to users. So users, the dash wizard will pop up here and let you know what's going on. People with the little blue suit icon, these are system admins, so they can do all the stuff we've been talking about. The gray people icon, that's just a standard user, so they have very limited access. Up here at the top is where you would add a new user, right? Enter their first name, their last name, and then the email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? You cannot reuse an email address. Then you create a password for them, and then you create their main extension number for them. Now, the system will suggest an extension number for any additional users you create. So this system, right, started off with extension 1000, so it suggests the next available is 1019, right? But I can always change it to say, hey, I want to make you 50/50. Now, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for this user. And that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user, right? So like if you create the user and you add a VoIP phone to them right away, it gets registered. They can pick up the VoIP phone and dial star 98. That automatically logs them into their voicemail box. That first time they do that, the system will walk them through creating their voicemail box PIN number, as well as their voicemail greeting, right? So basically their voicemail box is set up right from the get-go. Here's your option to include in the user directory. You can always change your mind here, or change your mind later, excuse me. Send emails to an alternate address. So when the system needs to communicate with your staff members, it does so via email, right? And by default, it will use the email address used for login, right? That's for things like password resets or voicemail notifications. Now, if you need to send those emails to a different address, that's where you put a check mark here and enter in a different email address than the one you use for login. And you can always adjust that later. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I believe you should check this, but basically what happens is once you click on create user, the system will send the new user an email saying, welcome them to Dash, send them their login information, and so that way they know how to log in. If you need to add multiple, then you would use create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, so if necessary, you can change their name. Here is where you can change their credentials. If you click on that, so you can change their email address that they use to log in with, as well as changing their password. Also here is a link, so that way you can send them the password reset email. Right, so if someone's complaining about the passwords you create for them, you can say, here, create your own. Oh, oops. Here's where you can change their voicemail box PIN number. And then here is where your option to send to an alternate address if you need to do it, as well as changing their status in the user directory. This pull down here, this allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. If you just signed up with us, you do not want to change yourself into a user. That doesn't happen very often, but it has. A little clock here, this is for your time zone. You can do a search. Typically speaking, for US-based customers, we say use Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, or New York. Just do a search for those, and that'll get you for most of the time zones you need. Ringing timeout defaults to 20 seconds, and this is how much time the system will offer a call to that user and all of their devices. Now, if you have a user that's only using a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 30 seconds, even up to 45, but 30 is a good starting point. 20 seconds, typically plenty of time to send a call to a landline or a VoIP phone. Just it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone. The extension box, users can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. Then you have a phone number box, right? So each user can have their own phone number or multiple phone numbers, right? So like your sales staff could have a direct number. So that way when they have contacts or on their business cards, right, then those people would call them directly versus going through your general main menu. One thing to keep in mind about users with their own phone numbers, this phone number does not have time of day, right? It does not have hours of operation. It's going to be available 24/7. Here you have the devices box. I'll go down here to this user who has none. You can choose either new device or add from spare, right? Adding from spare just means you're reusing device, right? So you're moving a phone from, Bobby to Karen, right? That sort of thing. Here is where you would add new devices. So first up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical VoIP phone sits on someone's desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models to choose, right? And these are the models that we know will work with us. Right? Others only have a few models. But basically, you would find the make and model of the phone you want to work with. And then here, you need to give it a name, right? So I usually say the person's name and the word phone, right? So Bob's phone, right? Then you have the MAC address. This is unique to each device. Usually sticker on the back of the phone, or if the phone's plugged in, usually under its status or basic settings, you can find the MAC address and you would enter it here. And then you would click on create device. Now, once a device is created, I'll go down to this one here. On the user, in terms of our dashboard, the next step is under advanced and miscellaneous. And where it says allow reprovision, you click unlock. Right? And then it says you've unsuccessfully unlocked the phone. You click on save changes. And then to be save changes here. Now, in terms of our dashboard, right, since you've already assigned it to a user and you've unlocked it, on our dashboard, you're done. However, you need to log into the phone's web user interface and give it a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your configuration information. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, do a search for auto provisioning, and that'll bring up the auto provisioning phone's document. That document has screenshots for these various manufacturers, as well as proper syntax for that URL. In some cases, there are additional settings that it will have you double check. You go through those steps, right? The phone's going to reboot a couple of times, typically speaking, but after it's done, it should show up here as a green device, meaning it's registered, right? Red means unregistered, green means registered, black means you've turned it off. Actually, here, let's go over here. Now, next device type is cell phone, right? And cell phone and landline are basically the same. Right? You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code on phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and then you click on create device. And then save changes. I'll click here on demo device, because that's a cell phone. So this is what it should look like, right? So I gave it a name, +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. If I click advanced and options, this is also the default setup. So in terms of how Dash handles calls to these kinds of devices, right? Call comes in, goes to Aaron here, rings his cell phone. Now, when Aaron picks up, he's going to hear a message. This is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When he presses 1, he's telling the system, yes, he's there, and yes, he wants to take this call. Connects, he's able to speak to the customer. So that's great if it's actually his cell phone. But let's say, for instance, when we have calls going to Aaron, it's actually, say after hours, we've contracted with a company to handle our after hours calls. They gave us a phone number saying, hey, send your calls to this phone number and we'll handle it. So if I added the number and just left it alone, right, then the system sends a call to the answering service and we're waiting for the answering service to press 1. It's a computer. It doesn't know when to press 1. It doesn't even know how to. right? So the call doesn't connect properly. So in that situation, you'd come here under advanced options, and where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail or landline's voicemail, put a check mark here and then click on save changes. So now when we send a call to this phone number, right, this phone number that is here, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. There's no message about this is a forwarded call, and there's no need to press 1. We just hear that pickup tone, call's connected. Great for an answering service. Now, if this was really Aaron's cell phone and he has this setting enabled, then what could happen is his cell phone voicemail could pick up. Well, that's a pickup tone. So the inbound caller can end up on Aaron's personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people really want that. Other people really do not. And they want to use the system voicemail versus their cell phones. The other feature that sometimes comes up is this one here. Keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls in, reaches out to Aaron. So on Aaron's cell phone, he sees customer Mary's phone number. He doesn't recognize it, and he's tired of robodialers, so he lets it go to voicemail. Maybe he's able to reconnect with customer Mary. Maybe he's not. So what you could do is uncheck this. So now when customer Mary calls, instead of seeing Mary's phone number, go back to the dashboard here. This phone number, this 408 number, is what shows up on Aaron's cell phone. So now he knows, oh, this is a work call. This is probably worth me taking, as long as he's not, unsafe or otherwise occupied. And then hopefully he can help customer Mary. All right, now next one I want to cover here is the soft phone. So on the user page, this is where, you should always read this warning message at least once. But this is where you would add the VirtualPBX soft phone app to a user. Right, so I clicked on soft phone, and here it says, give it a device name, it has all this information. Down here towards the bottom, which I can't highlight, but it says use third-party application. It's just before the view the configuration information. Right, if I click on that, it now flips it, and it says use VirtualPBX application. Right, so now I just need to give it a name, click on create device, and save changes. And that means I've added a VirtualPBX soft phone to Ariel's user here. Right, so after I click on create device and save changes, Ariel gets an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It's going to have his login information as well as download links. If I don't click this, right, I leave it alone, then what I've added is what's referred to as a third-party soft phone, meaning you're going to use someone else's soft phone app. Now, this option to flip it, it only shows up here when you add it on a user directly. If you add a soft phone on the devices tab, you can only add a third-party soft phone. And then the other thing, web phone, you want to add directly to a user. The web phone has a login. It uses your dash login at webphone.virtualpbx.net. So you need to associate it with a user first, right? You give it a name, click on create device, and then save changes. And then it's associated with this user. So that means Ariel could then use this email address, right, his password, and then the account name to log into webphone.virtualpbx.net. All right, user features. First up, caller ID number. This only works on a user that has their own phone number. i.e. you assigned a phone number to them, either from spare or bought a new one. So you click enable, then you select the phone number, and then you click on save changes. Right? So the number has to already be assigned to them first. And what this does is when Aaron here makes an outbound call from his VoIP devices, this phone number, right? So this 323 phone number, that becomes his outbound caller ID instead of the 408 number I had set up under my dashboard page. Next up, we have the virtual text application. This is a relatively new feature. If you just signed up with us, this feature is not enabled on your account right away. You need to actually talk to our account services team. But you turn it on, you set the phone number on your account. Now, this phone number should be a main number, an auto attendant phone number, or a number that's assigned to the user. And then you click on Save Changes. This will send an email to the user. welcoming them to virtual text. So it's possible you can have 3 emails from us with 3 different login information, right? One for your dash.virtualpbx.com, one for the VirtualPBX softphone app, and a third one for virtual text, right? Now, you can then go to virtualtext.app on a browser and log in that way, or you can download the app to your cell phone. That allows you to text from your number. Virtual text also allows you to share numbers among your staff members, so like for your main number, so that way multiple people can keep track of text conversations with your customers. Voicemail box. So by default, when you created the user, voicemail box is created for them. This is a default setting. Now, for a new account, you want to make sure that on that first user, you assign an extension number that will enable your ability to have voicemail. If you don't have an extension number, you're not going to be able to enable the voicemail box feature. Because it basically what happens is the system looks at your extension number and then makes your voicemail box number match. So that's why you have to have an extension number. I believe transcription is still a plan-specific feature, and that is the system listens to the voicemail message and then tries to type it out in the email notification to you. Now, it does the best of its ability, so people have bad microphones or aren't speaking into the microphone, it will impact the quality of that transcription. And by default, right, the system is going to attach the voicemail message to that email as an MP3 file, so you can just double-click and listen to it. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot hold any more. Now, by default, like this setup here, your staff has 3 ways that they can check their messages, right? The first is the email notification, but that doesn't delete it from their voicemail box. The other 2 ways they have is, one, they can dial in over the phone and listen to their messages, and you can then delete them that way. Or you can also go through the user portal, right? So the web page, go to dash.virtualpbx.com, and your standard users basically will have at least the user portal to get to, and that defaults them to their voicemail tab, so they can listen to their voicemail messages there, as well as delete them. If that is not working for your staff, and you're getting tired of voicemail boxes getting full, then you have this option here, which is delete after notification. Right? So after the system sends out that email with the attachment, it then deletes the voicemail from the system. Now, that means your staff is limited to only getting their voicemail messages via email. So if they have a problem with their email, it's a possibility they lose the voicemail messages. All right, Follow Me is a feature for users with multiple devices. When you click Enable, you have to tell the system which phones you're going to make use of. You click on the box here under Do Not Ring, right, to uncheck them. There we go. My mouse is messing with me today. I'm not sure why it's not unchecking. There we go. And then you have these green bars that you can click and drag to increase the ring time. Along here are timestamps, and you can edit this last one if you want to, or you can click Distribute. So now it rings my cell phone first and then this soft phone. Right? I can click and drag and then click Distribute. So now it rings my soft phone first and then my cell phone. Right? And I can still adjust these if I want to. Likewise, I could do something like this so that they ring for the same amount of time. Whatever changes you make, you click on Save Changes. So I'll go back to that. And that's how that's set up. Now this will supersede the ringing time under the user's name. Fax box, you can decide to enable a fax box on your users so they have their own fax box instead of using the company fax box number. Here, you can decide to use a phone number, right? So add from spare or buy new, or you can use an extension number. I recommend using a phone number because that way this user can then send and receive faxes, right? If you select an extension number, they can only ever receive a fax, and, or possibly worse, is you might limit who they can get faxes from, right? So like many electronic fax services, they don't have the ability to add an extension number. Right? You can only send it to actual phone number, and that's it. Conference bridge, when you click enable, as an admin, the only thing you need to really do is enter in their PIN number, which their staff member can adjust on their own via the user portal. The enable video conferencing, that's only for in-house use, right? So other Dash users can make use of it, but anyone outside of your organization will not be able to make use of video conferencing. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, and failover mode. Your staff members can enable or turn off or on call forwarding on their own, whether via the user portal or on their VoIP phone directly. Failover mode is something an admin has to set up for them. Here, you choose, are you sending it to a mobile phone or a desk phone? And then you add the number, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. You can choose if they can leave messages on the voicemail, etc. And then you would click on Save Changes. So what failover means is if their normal VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, turns red, and a call comes to the user at that time, the system will automatically forward the call to the cell phone. Now, in this case, Aaron already has 2 devices, and one of them looks to be a cell phone already. So you probably wouldn't need to make use of call forwarding for him at all. But for anyone who just has a VoIP device only, then you can use the failover mode. Right, customize call recording. When you first enable it, it will look like this, and the system is waiting for you to tell it which kind of calls to record. Inbound internal means it's a coworker call, right? So coworker Bob called Aaron. If I want to record it, I turn it on, or I can just turn it off. Inbound external means a outside call called in to Aaron, right? So customer Mary called, probably want that recorded. Right, outbound internal means Aaron called coworker Bob. You can choose to record it or not. And then outbound external means Aaron called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Now your account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. For call recording, we've typically been recommending customers make use of AWS storage. Right, so you have to have an AWS account, and then you can you talk to our services team to have AWS integration turned on your account, so then you can link your Dash account to AWS and store your calls there. But otherwise, it would be stored with us, which means you would go to recordings.virtualpbx.com, use your Dash login, and do your recordings there. Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want them to. You would upload a file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Find the file, click upload, and then save changes. Right, this would supersede that hold music file we set up under the dashboard. Do not disturb. If you turn this on, that means calls to this user are not going to ring their devices. Right, so typically going to voicemail or skipping them in a group or in a queue, which could be problematic. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID. I usually say match it to their extension number. Up to you if you want to require a PIN number. And then you would click on Save Changes. So what this is used for, shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. Right, so Aaron comes in the office on Tuesday. Right, he sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone and enters *11 and send. The system will ask him for his hot desk ID. He enters that. And then it will tell him that calls will now be sent to this device. So the rest of his workday, any call that goes to his user will ring at the phone he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time he rolls into the office, let's say that's a Friday, someone's already, Angela's at desk number 2. He says, good morning. He sits down at desk number 5. Does the same thing, right? Picks up the phone, *11, enters his hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. All right, groups, right? Short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments, right? Designed typically with multiple people in mind. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. After that, you click and drag the staff members you want to be in that group, and then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name, right? So you can change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. You got little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease that as necessary. You can also delete a group if you don't need it. Otherwise, you click on Save Changes. So the group call attempts, how many times the system offers a call to your group members. All right, so in this case, I'm saying offer it to a total of 2 times. Now, obviously, if one of my group members answers the call on the first time, the inbound caller won't be sent through a second time. Next up, you have the members box. I have 5 people in this group. This is what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all. Right, so call comes in, it's going to ring them all at the same time. Now, when calls come from a group to a user, the call from the group ignores the feature follow me, right? So like Aaron, we set up with follow me calling, but calls from the group are going to ignore that and ring both of his devices at the same time. Now, up here, right, you've got timestamps, so you can edit this last one. You have distribute, so just like that follow me setting, right? So now calls will always ring in this order, right? So every time, first call rings to Bob. Now, if Bob's on a call, right? So let's say the first call came into Bob, he took it, and 5 seconds later, a second call comes into the group. That second call is still going to be offered to Bob first. It's not going to skip him, right? So it's going to try to ring Bob for 24 seconds before it goes to Aaron. Right? Then if Bob and Aaron are both on calls and a third call comes in, offers it to both of them, right? So a total of 48 seconds before it goes to this porting hold user. Now, these are sliders, so you can adjust it, right? So you have some overlap, so that way people aren't having to wait on hold. Likewise, if I need to change the order, let's say Bob's on a special project, I want him at the end. Well, right now, I haven't changed it, right? Bob's still one of the first people wrong. But if I click distribute, now David, myself, I'm first every time. There's Bob's at the end. All right, those are your basic, options, right? You can have the same order, some sort of overlap, or if I go back to my original, right, or blast ringing. But the main thing to remember is that calls from the group ignore the user feature follow me. Groups can have multiple extension numbers if you wish them to. Right, you just click on add extension and enter in the new extension number. Groups can have their own phone number or phone numbers. I can add from spare, buy new. Just like on a user, right? This phone number does not have hours of operation, so it's available 24/7. And then we'll go to group features. First up is ringback. So call comes into the group, offered to your staff members. When your staff members' phones start to ring, that ringing sound piped back to that inbound caller, right? That's called ringback. If you don't want that ringing sound being sent to your callers, you can choose to enable this ringback feature and then upload your own media file, right? .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click upload if you need to add it, or choose from the pull down to select an already existing file, and then click on Save Changes. Next up is next action. First, you need to enable it, but basically what it is what do you want the system to do if no one picks up the call? Right, so after 2 attempts, I don't know if I'm in that same group. And then here, you have a pull down, and you choose where you want it to go. Back to your main menu, voicemail box, another user, a different group, an ACD queue if you're making use of them, a specific phone. You can have it go play to a media file, I believe. Oh, maybe not. Okay, it has to go to a voicemail box at the very least. Or a user, etc. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your VoIP phone users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal phone. They're sending calls to their cell phone. Now, again, if you have staff members with multiple devices, you don't have to worry about it. Caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users where you can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their staff members' phones. Or you can add additional numbers. To me, text makes a little bit more sense, but just depends on your use case. All right, so let's go to devices. This is your devices page, right? Shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered. Black means you've turned it off over here under the enable, right? Green means it's registered, so we can send a call to it. Up here, you can add devices here, right? SIP phone, what we showed under the users page. The main difference here is under that soft phone, right? You do not have that option to say use VirtualPBX application, right? So that means on the device page, you can only add a third-party soft phone. So you're using someone else's app. Some other things to know about VoIP phones. When you click on the little wrench icon here under Edit, Advanced. So audio for physical phones like this Yealink, you'd want G711A and G711U over here on the right. You would click on Save Changes, and that's under audio. The other thing is here, the emergency information, or E911. So you can select a phone number on your account. Click Select. Now, if there's actually an address associated with it, it would show up here, right? So this phone number doesn't actually have an address yet, but then you would click on Save Changes. So that's how you would assign a specific phone number and address to a VoIP phone, right? So with your staff members at different locations, you can do that. Greetings tab. So this shows all your media files on the account, whether they're your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, or your media or your hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add, right? So you can upload new files, right? You can give it a name, find the file on your computer, and then click on Create Greeting, and it will upload it here. All the files here, right? You have the name, and then the source, or the which is like TTS would be text to speech, right? Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. Under the playback column, you can click here, right? Click the little icon and play back the recording directly in your browser, right? So you can see if it's still relevant and if you need it. If for some reason it doesn't play back, you've got the download option. So you can download it to your system and then use your device's media player to listen to it that way. And then under Edit, when you click the little wrench icon here, this is where you would change the name, right, to something you would recognize, or where you would get rid of a greeting that you no longer need. Oops. All right. Next up, we have the Numbers tab. So it starts you off on your numbers in use. Basically, this showing you where you're using your numbers. You can't unassign or assign a number here. It's just letting you know where they are. But here you can also adjust the gear icon, right? So hit the caller ID, E91 or PPEN for any number. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. Now, whether you want to keep them or not, that's up to you. But let's say you have too many phone numbers on your account, so you do want to remove some numbers. You click on the box here in front of the numbers, and now you have this option up here to delete. So are you sure? Delete the numbers. And now they're gone from my account, right? So now I'm paying less per month. Here you can buy numbers, right? So local or toll free, and you'll just be adding new spare numbers. Port starts the port process, and what that just means is moving a number from one carrier to another. So in this case, say from Comcast to VirtualPBX. You would click on new port request, you give it a name, say local or toll free, you choose next, and now the system wants you to upload a PDF copy of your bill dated within the last 30 days. And then you'll continue. Basically, you need to follow the next steps. Later in the process, there is an option to download a blank letter agency or LOA, as well as then you can upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA does need a signature. Whether that's a digital signature or you printed it out, signed it, and then scanned it back in, either way will work. But printing your name twice or typing in your name twice will always get rejected. Beyond that, there's some forms to fill out, including like the address associated with the phone number. The system will also ask you for BTN, or billing telephone number, right? That if you're only porting one number, the phone number you're porting, that is the BTN. If you're porting multiple, then you'd want to talk with your current carrier to find out what that is. Typically speaking, port requests, like toll-free number port requests, take about a week if everything is correct. Right? It's like 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes much faster. Other times, could be longer. If we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there's not any kind of typo, or like in the case of addresses, if we have multiple addresses to work with, we check those other addresses as well. But once we've exhausted any options we have, then we let you know saying, hey, this is the error we're getting. You need to talk to your current carrier to find out what the correct information is. The current carrier who has that number, they get to determine when they release the number to us. It's not something we can control. Also, if you're porting from multiple carriers, each carrier that you're porting from should have its own LOA and bill copy, right? So basically different port requests for each carrier. All right, voicemail boxes. This shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Your user-created voicemail boxes have a name here under the user, right? But up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes, right? This is what you would do for your groups, for instance, or for your like ACD queues if you're making use of them. But when you do, you give it a name, a voicemail box number, and then a PIN number, right? Then you would click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, right, you can use this page here, the basic page here, to review it. So like you could call, this is how you would know what to press to call in terms of the voicemail box number and the PIN number, so you could check messages over the phone. Under Advanced, start on Greeting Media. You want to make sure that there's a media file in place. Now, the system has its own like default, please leave a message kind of generic message, but this is where you would upload your own. Obviously, under the basic settings, with this information, you could call in and record a greeting over the phone that way as well. The temporary file, that's for that vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected under temporary and media at the same time, the temporary file plays, right? Once you put temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Now, under recipients, your user-created voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For any voicemail box you create manually, or the main voicemail box that the system creates for you, you click here to add a new email recipient, and then you put in the email address. If you need to add multiple, then you would click on the add box to create a new row, and keep entering email addresses, and then clicking add until you're done. And then you would click on save changes. So after you've added a media file and recipients, then you would come here under advanced options. You would click on already set up, right? It's ready to go. And then you can make sure if you have the attachments to emails enabled, as well as delete after notification if you want that enabled or not. All right, call logs. This shows your history of your system, right? Calls coming in or out. The green arrow to the right is a call coming into the system. And so here you can see on this call the multiple legs that it went to. So it tried to ring this device, this cell phone, and this other cell phone. Right, so this had basically 3 legs in terms of the system trying to connect to the other side. And you see here, normal clearing indicates that this person picked up, or possibly if they have allow use of cell phone voicemail enabled, the cell phone's voicemail picked up. Normal clearing tells you the call ended normally, right? So the system says on one side or the other initiated a hang up. Right now, right, no answer means this person did not pick up in time. But then you notice up here at the top, originator cancer. That means the inbound caller hung up actually before anyone was really able to pick up. Likely that happened roughly at the same time as this device picked up. So basically, we don't know why that happened. Usually it's someone just got distracted or what have you. Now, today, you can download this as a CSV file. You can also go for the week, which in this case, not very long. This month, going to be a little bit more information. And you see these arrows to the yellow arrows to the left. That just means it's an outbound call from the system. Now, normally, let's see if we can find a longer one here. Now, each of these calls has a little fire hydrant icon here. When you click on that, it's going to open up an email for you. It's going to be pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. But in the body of that email, you're going to want to give us context, like why you're sending the email to us, right? Whether that's because your phone didn't actually ring or you were having audio problems, something of that nature. Now, each of these timestamps, right, you have a download link, so you can download a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheet programs, you can get some more information about what's going on with your call log. The custom field allows you to go back up to 12 months, right, to see your call history. And that's for the entire system. So if you need your call logs for any kind of compliance reasons, you'd probably want to do this on a monthly basis. If you need to go back further than 12 months, then you'd actually need to contact our support team. We have to escalate that up to an engineering team. They can go back up to 6 more months, so a total of 18 months. But after that, the data is not available. Feature codes, I've mentioned a couple of these. These are a way for your VoIP phone users to access a dash feature directly from their VoIP phone. Now, this information is a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which will have this information, but also a little contextual help printed out so you can have a better idea how to make use of it. All right, so that's everything on the dashboard. Blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. You would click over here where it says Edit Blacklists and click Add to create a new one. Or you can click on an existing list. All right, you need to give it a name of some sort. And then choose to block anonymous calls or not. Right? So anonymous calls means the inbound caller ID is not being presented to us. So if you turn this on and a call comes in without that valid inbound caller ID, we're going to block it. Right? They get busy tone. Or if you leave it off, they get through. Beyond that, down here, you click on Add Number, +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And keep clicking Add until you're done adding phone numbers. Once you are done, then you click Save here. Then towards the top right, click on Back to Settings. And make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected. And then click Update. And now the phone numbers on these two lists are being blocked from reaching any phone number on my account. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. So you can get to any fax box on the account. And you can see their fax history, so the date and the time, phone number involved, number of pages. You can download the file. You can also choose here to delete, especially if you have many faxes. The outbound fax tab, you can get to any fax box on the account as well. And you can see the fax history. Right, success obviously means it goes through. Fail means that the fax did not get transmitted to the other phone number. Right, so we had a problem connecting with that other phone number. Now, that could be it's a busy tone. That could be that call connected initially and we started transmitting and then something interrupted it. Occasionally, when you click on the little icon here, it might give you more information, but I'm pretty sure all it ever really said was failed up here. And usually, and what this means is, again, we had a problem communicating with that other fax number. Now, if we go to email to fax logs, anything you see here means this was the system had a problem processing the request. Right, thumbs down. Again, you see the date and time involved, the email format, and the email address it came from. Little eyeball icon here shows you some more information, but the main thing here is the error is no valid attachment. So that could be no attachment at all, right? Someone forgot to attach something, or they attached the wrong document type. Right here, you had a problem converting the attachment. So that could be a problem with the PDF. Now, PDF, just so you know, isn't the tightest of document standards. So sometimes resaving a PDF is enough to get it to go through. Other times you could, export it as a PDF, save as, download as, etc. And try each of those options to see if that will go through. Number Manager, that just takes you back to our spare number page. Reports, this actually is a plan-specific feature for advanced reporting where you can create your own reports. So if you have this feature, it would open up a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. You'd have to log in to create your own reports. On our YouTube channel, you can, under videos, do a search for advanced reporting demo, and that will show you much better what kind of reports you can do. And if you're interested in this, then you can contact our services team to see about adding that to your account. Unfortunately, it doesn't work here on my streaming software. Voicemails gets to your voicemail manager, so you can get to any voicemail box on the account. And then you can see their messages and their status, the date, the time, phone number involved. You can play it back. You can download it. If you click on the box in front of it, that's where you can change its status. Or since you're an admin, you can also move it to someone else's voicemail box if that's appropriate. SMS registration is new. Right now, this is only on pre-existing accounts, but this will be coming to all accounts. But basically, it's a process to get your phone numbers registered for text purposes. Call center, this opens a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. This is if you're making use of ACD queues. On our YouTube page, you want to look for the ACD Queues Pro demo. That's going to show you what the queues can do. But basically, it's an advanced version of groups, right? So like your staff members can log themselves in and out of the queue, whereas they can't do that in a group, as well as change their status to away, right? So that way they're, hey, I'm not taking calls. The main advantage, though, for groups is when a call comes in and a staff member is already on a call, it will skip them and just go to the next available user. Right? Whereas groups, it has to ring to that first person until that timer is done before it goes to the second person. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. So like this first one I have here, 408. So 408 area code, I choose this 408 number that's on my account. And I just said this rule, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number. Right, and then I click on Save Changes. The other one I created here is for the LA feature code. So what this means is my staff members need to dial *550 first. Then the area code and phone number they're going to reach out to, and then the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. So it looks like a call that's local to whoever I'm calling. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. All right, so if they're on a call, they'll have a little blue box and give you some details about it. You can go by employees or devices, as well as sort by who, available or who's busy, or all. Right, you can search. Also, if you have active inbound calls, each call would have its own box and letting you know who they speak to among your staff members. If there's a parked call, right? They would show up here as a box, and they'd have a parking spot number here as well. Recording Manager, by default, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which uses your Dash login to log in. And that is where you would view your recordings, right? Your call recordings. You can listen to them, download them, and with the default recording, you should be able to delete them there. If you're using AWS storage, I don't believe our interface allows you to delete the recordings there yet. It's something that's being worked on, but you can still log into your AWS account directly and delete that way. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This is actually something you would speak to our support or our sales team about. Excuse me. This is programming, and what it does is allow you to link your Dash account to other software. Click up here and click on new webhook and basically fill out the form. For examples of what we've done, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com. There's sample code there showing you what we've linked in terms of Dash to other software. Also, on our YouTube channel, you can look up or search for the Introduction to Zapier webinar, which is one of the primary things many of our customers link to is Zapier, but that will go over some of the webhooks as well, give you an idea of what can be done. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user on your account has access to their own user portal. Right, so here is where it defaults you to your voicemail tab, so your staff can view their own voicemails, they can listen to it, they can download it, put a little check mark here and change its status to get rid of it, for example. Their call history, they can view the calls that come in and out to them. They can change the date range and go from there. The fax tab is only good for users that have their own fax box, but then they can see their fax history. The contact list, this is where your staff could view other staff members, right? So you can get everyone else's extension number. Same with the auto attendance or groups, etc., so they know how to transfer calls. Conference tab. Over here on the right, this is where your staff members can adjust their PIN numbers, right? For themselves, moderator PIN, or for their guests, the participant PIN number. Then they can choose to have people join muted or deafened, and then play entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, over here, this little plus icon here, this allows them to invite other Dash users to their conference. The little lock icon, so they can lock a conference so other people cannot join. They can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and end the conference call. When you're also in an active conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box, so you can mute a specific person or kick out a specific person. And then the Settings and Devices tab. So right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. Put a little check mark, put +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes. Now calls are being forwarded. And again, if they already have their cell phone device as a device on their user, they don't need to do this. And that is everything. Haven't seen any questions pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. We did record the training, so you can always come back and view the whole training or share it with other staff members. And we'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.